Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. I came in a little bit hot there, unfortunately, on the microphone, and I could feel it. We will be talking about the NBA Cup Finals today, some Milwaukee stuff, some Oklahoma City stuff. We will be talking about Zach Lavine trade rumors potentially to Denver, as well as Denver potentially looking into some other names as well, according to Ian Begley. They're also considering Brandon Ingram, I guess. And then finally, we'll do an NBA Draft Q&A. If you are watching this live or whenever, please feel free to ask some questions and we will answer them. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Oh! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Hey, listen, I have no problem with us coming in hot with a lot of energy. I also, after our last recording, you finally said, Bryce, why don't you just look on the bottom of your bobblehead? I bet the company was smart enough to put their name on their product. Kind of like a Nike sign. Oh, wrong side. Kind of like a Nike sign and, you know, all of that stuff. So this is my official campaign. B Bobbler should be the official bobblehead maker of the NBA. And if anybody from B Bobbler is watching, can we get Sam Vecenie one of these? Because he deserves one.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't believe that, like, you hadn't done that yet. I was like, wait, has he looked at the bottom? Like,
Nope.
Is that possible?
Nope. Had it for over a month. Didn't even cross my mind.
Yep. You know, sometimes that happens.
Why would the company put their name on the product? Why would they do that?
Who's to say, really? Could it help them, get their name out there?
Yeah, could it help them get promoted on a podcast 6 weeks earlier if they had just put their name on their product?
Oh my God. Okay, so let's start with the NBA Cup final. The Milwaukee Bucks defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder 97-81. Giannis with a completely dominant performance, kind of like we predicted on Sunday going into Monday. By the way, this podcast is a day early. Bryce has some things going on tomorrow night. We decided to move it up a day, and you're traveling as well a little bit here coming up. So
let's not shortchange the kindergarten through second grade girls basketball inter squad scrimmage that's going on Thursday. This is a big moment for our season that doesn't have actual games. This is the culmination of all of our practices, and it's going to be a treat. I'm going to have Randy record some of this so I can post on Twitter for all of the people that watch Game Theory so they can enjoy.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Getting to higher level basketball, just one level higher though. Okay. So did you find this game instructive more for Milwaukee, who, by the way, has now won 13 of 16 games, has, for my money, the guy that I would consider the league MVP right now in Giannis at this point. And, a team that won a game now without Chris Middleton, who did not play in that game last night as well. Or for Oklahoma City, who struggled, I think, to create really anything effective offensively. In all honesty, I thought Milwaukee did a great job. And also just had like kind of a poor shooting night. Even so, with that, I think Milwaukee's defense did a great job of limiting penetration and thus like reducing the number of kick out threes that were possible. I think that if you look at Oklahoma City's shot quality from three, I bet it would be lower than expected just in terms of contest rate. Do you take more away from this for Milwaukee or for Oklahoma City?
So I think this may be because I wasn't a huge believer in Milwaukee, but I watched them last night and I went, man, this was really impressive. And this has to do again with perception and where I think teams are at. And I've come on here and said I thought Oklahoma City was the second best team in the league and might win the most regular season, all of that. Milwaukee looked really good. And as you mentioned, without Chris Middleton, and Milwaukee looked like a team who's kind of figured out who they are. And we talk about roles all the time. We talk about roles with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I feel like this Bucks team has figured out their role. AJ Green has a real role on this team and does it very well. I've mentioned multiple times now, Sam, they remind me a little bit of the Mavs of when their other guys, quote unquote, other guys make threes, they're pretty good. And I realize they didn't win this game with their offense, but 2 of 5 from Prince, 3 of 6 from Gary Trent Jr., 3 of 5 from AJ Green. Gary Trent Jr.'s buckets were big because it kept Oklahoma City at bay in the fourth quarter and kept this thing from getting close at any point in the fourth quarter once the Bucks really took the lead. My biggest takeaway for Oklahoma City was, man, where's the offense? And we should point out they're missing one of their 3 best players, just like you could say the Bucks are. And that guy's really important. And I think would have changed the defensive stuff. I know we're going to talk about matchups and what we agreed with and what we didn't from Dagnall. But Chet opens up a lot offensively for them. But I don't know that he fixes what was the concern last night with some of the creation and some of that. Or do you think he does just because of his floor spacing?
It's really interesting. I do think that he would help, but I think that you would need to, in order to get the most out of the spacing, play him without Hartenstein on the court.
Yeah.
And Hartenstein last night was not as critical as he could have been defensively, but was still useful on the interior. And he had like 16 points or something like that. His floater was rolling in the way that it typically is. I think that, yeah. So let's talk about Milwaukee first. To answer my question, I would say Milwaukee was more impressive to me than Oklahoma City was concerning. Milwaukee just being able to go out and play through Giannis. The Giannis and Dame synergy, I think, is something that continues to build every single game that I watch Milwaukee. It does feel like they are getting better and better at playing together more and more. And I did a video last night on Giannis, just kind of breaking down what made him so special in that game. And obviously we can talk about the body control. We can talk about the shot creation, the power, the strength, the physicality, the fact that he's like the modern era Shaq, right? Like we can talk about all of that, but more than anything to me, I thought that his passing was spectacular last night. He had a triple-double, 10 assists, I think like 19 rebounds with his 26 points. And I thought that he was really effective as an overall help defender as well.
Yes.
Being able to play off of guys like Alex Caruso, being able to play off of guys like Kenrich Williams. Milwaukee made the calculation that Oklahoma City didn't in this game. They decided, okay, we're going to put Giannis on either Lou Dort or one of their least imposing players and just let Giannis be a crazy help defender. And it really collapsed the paint for Oklahoma City as they tried to collapse the paint, right? It made it way harder. It made it way more congested in there, which to me was kind of the deciding factor in the game, because on the other side, Oklahoma City, despite the fact that Giannis was just bludgeoning them and beating the shit out of them on the interior, never switched to that. I don't remember a moment, at least, where they did, where they played, because you and I talked about this. I would have come out with someone like Dort or Jalen Williams on Giannis, the other one of those two on Brook Lopez, and then Hartenstein on Andre Jackson Jr., and let Hartenstein be the help defender and just let Andre Jackson Jr. just roam free and do whatever he wants on offense. And the fact that Oklahoma City and Mark Daigneault and that coaching staff never did that, really, like there might have been a couple of possessions where he got switched, but it was never like a tried and true strategy in that game. It felt like to me, where it felt specific, where that was the plan, was very surprising to me. And ultimately, I think it made it really difficult on both ends, because on the defensive end, you don't have the rim protection you need, because Giannis is just going to be able to go through Jalen Williams. They played Caruso on Giannis at times. He just blew through Caruso without any issue.
Yeah.
But also on defense, or I'm sorry, when Oklahoma City's on offense, if you're taking Jackson out of the game by not guarding him on offense, and they decide that they have to make a change and take Jackson off of the court, you're making life easier for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
I thought Shai got to his mid-range spots for the most part, but I didn't think he got as close to the basket as he consistently does throughout the course of his career. On top of that, I thought Andre Jackson made him work on defense at the very least. And we can talk about 3-point variance. They go 5 for 32. They definitely missed some open shots. But I felt like more than anything, the biggest issue was that Milwaukee decided to collapse the paint and make it so that they didn't quite get as many drive and kick threes that were open as, say, Milwaukee did with what they were running.
The only times I saw Hart end up being the low man help guy was if Andre Jackson Jr. was in the weak side corner and Lopez was on the weak side wing, SGA and Hart would switch responsibilities and SGA would get Hart as the low man. But I only noticed it a couple times, and that's really easy for Milwaukee to get rid. Like, they just put Brook Lopez at the top of the key or move him somewhere else where they can't do that.
Correct.
The other thing it does is it now makes it easier for Andre Jackson Jr. to match up with SGA because there's no cross match on either end of the floor. Like we highlight this stuff all the time. So because SGA is also guarding Andre Jackson Jr., it's easier for Andre Jackson Jr. to keep track of him when a shot goes up, as opposed to if somebody else was guarding him, because naturally that's who you end up closest to. Not all the time, but just in general. So I didn't like that matchup. It didn't make sense to me that it was SGA. Not when it's Giannis, right? Like, not when you need someone that's going to contest him at the rim.
Correct.
If it's of a different team where SGA can roam and jump a passing lane and read eyes and stuff like that, then it makes more sense. I didn't think in this specific matchup that made as much sense with the matchups.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Do you think that this game said to Oklahoma City, hey, we might need another creator? Or do you think it says to them, let's wait until Chet gets back, hopefully he gets back, and changes things for us?
So this was the first time where I at least went, man, what is something that they could go get? Do they need a guy that can come in and really create? Because I think I've just defaulted to SGA is one of the 5 best players in the league. And when he's not in the game, you give the ball to J-Dub. Or like we've seen AJ Mitchell do it. We've talked about that, but AJ Mitchell's not going to do it as a rookie in the playoffs. So I think it's a real question that I assume down in OKC they're talking about right now and having to figure out, because it was an issue last night for them.
So I think where I'm at is I would like to see a little bit more of them playing like really good teams before I, make a calculated statement one way or another. They did just drop 70 in the second half on a Rockets defense that is absolutely outstanding. They dropped 118 on Dallas's defense. They dropped 116 earlier this year on the road against Houston, another good defense, but they have had these weird, like sub 100, 100-ish games from time to time, like 102 against Orlando, 105 against the Spurs, 99 against the Suns, 104 against the Spurs, right? They do have these games occasionally where it feels like they don't have enough on-ball juice if Shai doesn't have it. I do wonder if it might be beneficial for them to go get like a high-level backup guard potentially. But like
it's funny
like, who are they going to?
The one that just got traded is the first one that popped into my mind. Like, that was the first name that I thought of. Like, oh, okay, he could come in and do these things. As you're scouring names, I do want to at least mention, because I'm sure they went 5 of 32 overall from 3. Shai was 2 of 9. I thought the 3-point jumper looked a little like it almost looked like he struggled. I don't know. I got to watch that jumper a little bit more from 3 because it's so smooth from the mid range. But J-Dub was 1 of 4. My guy Isaiah Joe was 1 of 6. Dort, who has shot the ball extremely well this year from 3 was 0 of 4. I thought Kenrich Williams was not good at all last night. And that was one of my biggest things is like, okay, this is Chet minutes, and any of those minutes. Caruso's 0 of 2, and Caruso sneakily has not shot the ball well from 3. He's at 26%. And then, Kaysen didn't make one. AJ Mitchell 0 for 2. So if they make some of these threes, it's a little bit different. I don't want to take away from the Bucks defense, though. You mentioned it earlier, so real quick, I do think the Bucks defense contributed to this. I thought they defended well. They disrupted. I didn't think Oklahoma City got in a great flow consistently on the offensive end.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see their cap situation's weird without giving up any of their really good players. They could theoretically do Aaron Wiggins, who barely played last night. Bizarrely,
so did you find that interesting? Yeah, I was shocked. I
thought they could use offensive juice.
And I know they kind of change up the starting lineup. I don't watch enough games back to back for them. Do they just have a rotation of who they start between Wallace, Wiggins, and Joe that every couple games they trade them out? Or I was a little interested by that as well, that Kaysen almost changed that game. I took a lot of in-depth notes in preparation for this, and then kind of hoping it was a really close game. But after the 2 technical free throws and the Dame 3-pointer, I was like, okay, how do the Thunder respond here? SGA got a mid-range pull up. There was some back and forth. It got down to 8. And then Wallace had a huge offensive rebound that got SGA a 3. Wallace got a deflection that led to SGA transition free throws. And then Wallace had a cut and floater that cut the lead to 5. He made some really impactful plays, but I was kind of surprised he didn't start in this game because it continues to give matchup versatility. And the other thing was, if they're going to be so scared of Isaiah Joe guarding people that they have to double every time, as much as I love him, that's an issue. The Bucks got some good looks because the OKC felt like they had to go double, even on Dame. Even when Joe was on Dame, they felt the need to go double.
So if they wanted to consolidate a little bit here, right? Not a lot, but if they wanted to not move Lou Dort's the easiest functionality. I don't think they're going to move Lou Dort. They could move after January 15th, Aaron Wiggins and Kenrich Williams together and get I don't know, probably a player worth 20-ish million, something like that. I don't know how close they are to the hard cap necessarily, but Aaron Wiggins and Kenrich Williams combine for right around 17 million in space, right? So if you wanted to combine those two, maybe you can throw in an Ousmane Dieng, get up to 22 million or something if you really wanted to go get somebody like this. But there are a couple names on the market that make sense to me. I think Cam Johnson would really help them, right? Just from hey, let's go get a flat out fucking lights out shooter to replace Isaiah Joe in the starting lineup, right? Bigger dude, better defensively. We don't have to hide him as much defensively. But again, here's the thing about them taking expensive deals that are long-term contracts, though. The Cam Johnson deal has 3 years left. In that third year, Cam Johnson making $20+ million is probably a problem for them, assuming that they keep Shea, because they will have Shea at a crazy max number. They will have Chet at a max number, and they will have J-Dub at a max number at that point. So it becomes complicated along with Lou Dort's deal, along with if they extend Caruso, along with the Hartenstein deal in the third year, right? If they keep him. So financially, they do have to at least be cognizant of who they acquire. I do wonder if they would kind of limit themselves to somebody on a 2-year deal as opposed to a 3-year deal, just because that lines up a little bit better financially for them long term. But again, what I'll say here is there are a few different avenues they could go. I think they could go get a guard shot creator. I think they could go get a just flat out fucking shooter, right? The other thing that I really felt in that game last night was without Chet on the court, and even with Chet to an extent, Chet will go up and get lobs and stuff, but like not quite to the same level. They don't have a lot of like vertical rim running pressure.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And you see it with the fact that they don't draw fouls, right? Like they're 28th in the league in free throw rate.
Yep.
I feel like they don't have that guy who can be like a real downhill rim presence. Good as Hartenstein is, and good as the Hartenstein floater is that he's making it like fucking 60% now this year. I do feel like not having that rim like attack, like, you know, club to pull out of the bag is it can be like that vertical athleticism lacking. That can be an issue for them at times.
All right, let me throw out a couple names at you.
Sure.
Anthony Simons is the guy we always bring up with stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't like the contract at this point. And I don't think he fits them because he doesn't defend.
So here's two other names then. Both the Utah guys, Sexton and Clarkson. Or Clarkson.
I've thought a lot about Colin Sexton for them.
Yeah.
I respect the fact that Colin tries hard on defense. Like he gives effort. He's a competitor that I think that they would kind of vibe with a little bit. I worry that he's not big enough or long enough. Like I feel like what have we been saying about Oklahoma City now for years on end, right? In terms of what their player acquisition strategy is. It is long, super high feel, super high skill, right?
Yep.
And Sexton doesn't really have the like super high feel. He's not the misnomer about Colin Sexton is that like he can be a selfish player. I don't think he's selfish. I just don't think he has good vision more than anything as a passer. And he's a competitor, but like he doesn't tick the size box and he doesn't really tick the like super high feel box either for them. So I don't really think that that's something they would do. Cam Johnson like somewhat makes sense for them to me because he ticks the like the size, skill, you know, decent feel for the game button. But
I agree. I just don't think Cam Johnson necessarily fits what we're talking about in terms of another creator. Like
I agree
really
with that.
break down the defense, pressure the rim, all of that stuff, which is, you know, go get his own bucket if they needed it, that type. And
what if they did Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams, and 2 first-round picks for Cam Johnson and basically replace Isaiah Joe with bigger Isaiah Joe?
I mean, you're killing me with Isaiah Joe getting moved, but
I love Isaiah Joe. He's really good. I just I'm trying to come up with, you know, potential answers on some level. And maybe it's like their 2 worst first-round picks or something like that.
Yeah.
But they like the reason it has to be 2 firsts is because like the Nets don't have to move Cam Johnson. Like he has 3 years left on his deal and it's like a pretty reasonable contract. So I'm interested to see kind of how they go about things.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what, and we're still talking about a team that is 20 and 5. The game didn't even count for their record last night, but if we're going to talk about the NBA Cup giving us a chance to look at a different level of basketball during the regular season, I do think it's okay for us to evaluate these a little bit deeper. And it seemed like Milwaukee perhaps was able to find something that could be a potential issue for this team when the playoffs come, especially for a team that's looking to make a deep playoff run.
That's ultimately it for me. It's that the standard for Oklahoma City is not like this year. To me, the standard for Oklahoma City is we are trying to go win a title. NBA teams that win a title tend to be pretty fucking close to perfect, right? In some respect, or they just have like some overwhelming superstar power in some way, right? Oklahoma City is an unbelievable basketball team. They continue to be like defense. They allowed 97 points to Milwaukee last night. defense was not the issue. They are as good a defensive team given this era as I have watched in a long time. And at the end of the day, though, the goal is to win a title for them. They have that. They've earned that at this point to where that should be your standard. It's not a curse. It's a gift that they have earned that respect at this point. But, if you're going to do that, you probably I do wonder if they need one more thing at the end of the day. And I think there are a few different ways they can go about it.
No team is better equipped to go get that one more thing than the Oklahoma City Thunder.
That's the thing. They have a million picks here moving forward, and it wouldn't really hinder them. The only thing is, would it hinder their cap flexibility long term, and would they have to figure out future solutions? I mean, that can just be future Sam Presti problems too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. That's all I've got on the NBA Cup. The Bucks look great. I mean, we talked about them a little bit here, but I did a whole thing on the Bucks last night. I don't know that I need to shout out Doc Rivers. I thought he outcoached Dagnall last night. Shout out Damian Lillard, did an amazing job playing second fiddle to Giannis last night. Shout out AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. as well. I think they played a critical role. Brooke Lopez's ability to pull Isaiah Hartenstein away from the rim was enormous, as you brought up earlier. They look great right now. They've won 13 of 16 and they're rolling.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, and early on in the season, it didn't look as good, but we talked about the minimum signings they made. I mentioned Gary Trent Jr. earlier. I realize he's still not shooting great overall from the field, but he's up to almost 40% from three. And I think for what this team needs, what they've kind of fallen into now, if they can bring him in off the bench and he can make 2 or 3 threes and provide floor spacing, Taurean Prince is still shooting over 50% from three. And AJ Green is really good, Sam. I had some notes in here on him where it's okay, he's held up okay on SGA there. He went for the shot fake, but he stayed in front, forces a tough baseline fadeaway. And then the confidence offensively with the jump shot is just ridiculous. And you can see that they have confidence in him. They hunt him out and seek him out as an offense to get him attempts. So they found something there with AJ Green. And I feel like they found their role. They found their rotation. And yeah, they were really impressive. A team that I don't always enjoy aesthetically watching, whatever. I enjoyed watching the way they went about their business. And Giannis is, I mean, you said it. It's funny sometimes when we're on the same wavelength. I was thinking last night, they've won enough games. Why is he not the MVP of the league with how many games they've won now? And so at this point, with the number he's putting up and the way they've responded to the early struggles, he's been incredible.
Yeah, I agree with you. We got to shout out some of our good friends that sponsor the show. First, though, shout out to the good folks over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. We love PrizePicks here at Game Theory because of how easy they make it to get real money sports action. If you think that with Michael Penix at quarterback this week, somebody like Drake London's going to go nuts, you can just pick over or under his yardage total for next week. And you can make your pick in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinion into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code GameTheory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code GameTheory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Second sponsor today. Shout out to the good folks at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth for just $5 per month. The new Gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Okay, Second topic of the day, we want to jump in and talk about the Zach Lavine situation with Denver. Situation seems right. Last night, good friend of the program, Tony Jones, as well as Sam Amick over at The Athletic, reported that with the NBA's trade window opening this past weekend and with trade deadline less than 2 months away, the Nuggets are canvassing the league in support or in pursuit of a player that can offer significant help offensively. As a result, the Nuggets have either expressed interest in or have had preliminary trade discussions on the following players: Zach Lavine, Jordan Poole, Jordan Clarkson, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Johnson, and Jonas Valanciunas. League sources say the focus on Lavine in recent discussions is significant, with the Nuggets interested in the 29-year-old who is averaging 21.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per game this season. Bryce, what is your immediate thought on a Zach Lavine fit in Denver?
Yeah. So one, Jonas Valanciunas being on that list was an interesting little last name.
I think that's more a statement of Dario Saric not getting it done.
Not getting it done. No. Yeah, DeAndre Jordan getting all those minutes right now. Getting everything out of him that they can. I like the idea. I'm probably higher on Zach Lavine than most people are at this point. I think he's been really good this year, Sam. I know we've talked about it. We did the trade kind of before December 15th primer of who we thought could be traded and make an impact. The dude's at 50, 43, 80 right now, and he's creating a little bit. He's rebounding. I went back through my notes. Every single game, it says the same thing: is I like his offensive process right now. I don't think he's forcing things. I think he's letting the game come to him. He can break down the defense. But most importantly, I've watched him go nuclear multiple times, including 6 threes against a not worst team in the NBA, Detroit Pistons. And he can really score. It's so nice to be able to talk about them like they're a competent basketball team, and what other teams do. What other teams do against them actually matters. It's like, oh, Lavine hit 6 threes on the Pistons. It's the Pistons. Like, no, it's the 11 and 16 Pistons who beat the Heat twice in overtime this year. But like I don't know. Maybe I'm falling for something I shouldn't hear, but I think he's really good. And I think he would be awesome playing off of Jokic, like just playing off of the shot making, the spacing, the cutting, all of that. I'm not saying he's great defensively. I would not say that, but in their game against the Hornets, he at least took the Brandon Miller matchup. I love the idea. Now I know we have to like actually get into what the trade would be, and that's an entirely different conversation. But the idea of Zach Lavine on the Nuggets playing off of Jokic is very intriguing to me.
So if we're talking purely about a Jokic-Lavine combination, I love it. I think it makes so much sense, and I think those two would play off of each other incredibly well. I also am somebody who thinks Zach Lavine has been pretty underrated really throughout basically since he signed that extension, right? So I did trade deadline big board this week over at The Athletic. I had Zach Lavine at number 2, had him ahead of Cam Johnson, had him ahead of Brandon Ingram. For my money, Lavine is the best player on this list other than Jimmy Butler. He has been unbelievable. Like you said, 22, 50, 43, and 80. I don't love the decision-making as a passer. I still think that some of that stuff is there. I think you see it particularly in end-of-game situations for Chicago, where it does go a little bit hero ball-y at times, and there can be some contested shots. And I don't think that Zach has the best vision in the world. Again, I don't think he's a selfish player. I just don't think he has great vision necessarily. I also think the defense is a little bit of a misnomer with Zach. Like, he's actually pretty okay on the ball and has been for a few years now. Let's throw away last year. Last year was like a total clusterfuck, and he had the knee injury and everything and barely played. And I think when he played, he was not awesome on defense. But this year and the year before that, I actually think the on-ball defense has been pretty okay. It's that off the ball, he does tend to get lost a little bit and will like disengage a touch from time to time and can get beat that way a little bit. So this is where I think that the structure of this has to kind of be discussed and come into play, right? Lavine makes $43.1 million. Over the next 2 years, he will make $95 million. I think it's like 46 and then 49, basically. Really, functionally, the only way in season for Denver to do a Zach Lavine deal is by including Michael Porter Jr. And I don't think, to me, that's almost solving one issue in terms of like shot creation and opening up another issue. Because to me, so maybe I should mention this. The reason that it can only be Michael Porter Jr., I mean, in theory, or Jokic, I guess, but that's obviously not happening. The reason that it basically has to be Porter is because both Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray cannot be traded due to their extensions. They signed extensions in September and I think October, respectively. And because of that, they are ineligible to be traded before the deadline. That means that really their only functional way to make a move for Zach Lavine is with Michael Porter Jr. And the money is easy. You can do Michael Porter Jr. and Zach Lavine, or and Zeke Naji for Zach Lavine, and the money matches up basically perfectly. But I actually think that for what Denver needs and what Denver does defensively, that Michael Porter Jr., who is not some incredible defender, to be clear, I think that his size, though, makes him probably a little bit more functional defensively in playoff settings, and also gives them a little bit more versatility on how they can maneuver around Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon, particularly onto more difficult matchups. Like if you have Murray and Lavine out there, it's really hard against Oklahoma City, for instance, along with whoever their fifth starter will be. It's really hard to move Aaron Gordon up the lineup to guard Shea at that point, because then you're creating like a bit of a front court gap, right? Where then you have either Lavine or Murray probably guarding, maybe it's Christian Brown, I guess, right? I guess their fifth starter probably would be Christian Brown. You would then have Christian Brown guarding Jalen Williams. And then what do you do with Chet at that point, right? So I think that Porter gives Gordon real flexibility matchup wise defensively that Denver actually really needs. So I personally don't love the idea of moving Porter for Lavine. I like the idea of something you said to me last night, texting about this. I like the idea of, can you move Murray at some point? Like, I like the idea of Lavine replacing Murray.
Yeah.
But is Murray's contract something that will be an asset in the summer? I don't really think so. Like, I'm a little bit skeptical of that. But I don't love Murray and Lavine together. I love Lavine. I think Lavine at this point, frankly, might be a better player than Murray. So
he
that's kind of where I
unquestionably
sit on it a little bit.
he has unquestionably been this year. I shouldn't say I hate when people say unquestioned. I think he has been better than Jamal Murray this season, just based off what I've watched, based off how I'm worried about Jamal Murray's ability to create separation and create a shot diet, even if Zach Lavine takes really difficult shots, his athleticism still allows him to get better and cleaner looks than what I think Murray does. Now, there would be some creation questions that Murray has a little bit more than Lavine, but right now, Lavine is shooting way better from the field and from three than what Murray is. The counter is Zach Lavine is 29 years old. Murray's only 27. Both, I think, have some injury questions. The other thing I'll say on the Michael Porter Jr., this is a team that is 24th in defensive rebound percentage. You want to guess who their second best defensive rebounder is according to the numbers? It's Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
Like people may say Aaron Gordon. The numbers say by almost 1.5 defensive rebounds per game, it's actually Michael Porter Jr. And while Lavine is athletic, that's not something he does incredibly well. He averages 4, but to your length and just kind of size argument, that's why I think it's a little bit of a different conversation as well.
Yeah. The rebounding is a really good point as well. That makes a lot of sense to me too. If I was Denver, so let's kind of pivot here, because the other name that Ian Begley brought up, and I'll bring that up, he brought up Brandon Ingram.
Why?
I'm somewhat more interested just due to the size, but like Brandon is also Brandon's a worse defender than Lavine, I think, at this point, if I'm being honest.
And this would be the
and
same
that is
trade.
A lot of like, and you know, part of what makes Porter work so well is that ability to play both on and off the ball, particularly off the ball. Part of why I like Lavine is that he's capable of playing both on and off the ball. Brandon Ingram doesn't really play off the ball well. So I feel like you're just going to be putting the ball in his hands more. So while I like the defense, I think that the defensive like flexibility issues, you know, become a little bit easier to solve.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. Just the size.
I actually don't think he's a great Jokic fit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, again, so now my thing would be you're taking your best 3-point shooter off the team, at least on volume. Julian Strawther shooting it really well. And adding, you know, substituting him with Brandon Ingram, where I like the idea of Brandon Ingram on some of these teams. If I knew, and I don't know Brandon Ingram, I don't know what he wants or who he wants to be or how he wants to play. But if he was more willing to take these catch and shoot off the ball, and he is shooting the highest volume of 3-point attempts of his career so far this year. Again, another player we're talking about here that has some injury concerns as well to go along with everything. And on top of his, you have a contract situation you have to figure out with him also. Like Lavine's contract isn't great, but you at least know exactly what you're getting into with that. So I don't love the BI one as well, unless you told me he was really going to buy into. I guess I just don't envision like BI cutting off the ball to the, you know, catching these back doors from Jokic and stuff like that. Maybe I'm shortchanging how good he could be off the ball. But I don't love that. I hope I'm not overvaluing Michael Porter Jr. right now. I think maybe if anything, I'm overvaluing the importance of Michael Porter Jr. to the Nuggets. And maybe that's a miscalculation on my part and kind of what he provides them and how he fits in all of this.
So is there a idea that you can think of? To me, if I was Denver, what I would be looking to do is to split the Michael Porter Jr. deal into smaller pieces, like a couple of like $15 million players, as opposed to one $43 million player, by also adding in the Najee deal. Is there anything you can think of that kind of works in that regard? Like one idea that I kind of thought of was, is there a world where Atlanta would do something like Larry Nance Jr. and DeAndre Hunter or something like that?
Yeah.
Like would that track?
Hunter's been awesome. So then what? So now you you replace MPJ with Hunter and hope what you've seen from him scoring wise continues. And then along with that, you get this backup big that you really, really covet, who like Larry Nance Jr. would be so much fun playing off of Jokic too. Like
Yeah.
I realize that's he would
Well,
be,
and now actually thinking about this a little bit smarter, I guess. If you're doing Atlanta and sending Porter to Atlanta, could you get Bogdan and do the Serbia connection and get Porter, which they want to go bigger and longer across the wings? You could do basically like Dyson, Porter, Ricochet, Jalen Johnson.
That would be a lot
across
of fun.
the wings.
I'm not gonna lie, that would be fun.
Like that's actually kind of interesting to me.
I'm in on that for Atlanta. That would be fun.
It kind of works for Denver too, doesn't it?
No, I like it for Denver also, because if I'm Denver, then I'm taking a chance on DeAndre being this dude, or even if you just get one, like even if he just plays the rest of this year, like the way how he's playing right now, and he hasn't been a bad player. Like, don't get me wrong, he's just shooting ridiculous right now. But I mean, he's a career 37% 3-point shooter. It's not like he's been bad, consistently 15 points a game. And then Bogdan is going to play really well with you. Yeah, this one's interesting. I like this more than the other two things we've talked about. I think it's more realistic, and you could see Atlanta talking themselves into this, right? Like the idea of another rangy wing that really spaces the floor and makes sense. Like he does what those other two guys struggle with right now in Zach and even Jalen. As much as I love Jalen, like that's a nice little fit for him in there. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I'm messing with this one.
Kind of works a little bit.
How's the money
Atlanta
work?
And so it's if you do Bogdan, it doesn't work. If you do DeAndre and Larry Nance, I think it does work. You'd have to add in some money here or there, basically from Atlanta to Denver in order to make, this work for Bogdan. Maybe it's Kobe Buffkin or something, Denver takes a flyer on him. But like if I'm Atlanta, like I don't know that I need Michael Porter that badly, right? But I actually do think there's real synergy between these two teams where maybe instead of Larry Nance, maybe it's Okongwu, right? And that's your backup big. But I don't think that really works because he can't, like, I don't think he can play with Jokic. Like that doesn't really track for me all that well defensively for that team. But something surrounding like one of DeAndre. I mean, look, you could also just do like DeAndre and Bogdan, but that feels like a little bit too much for Porter to me. But if you did Nance and then one of those two, and then like one other thing, or maybe you rope in a third team and, figure all that out, right? That kind of tracks to me a little bit.
Yeah. So that's what, if I was Denver, I'd want to try to find a way to get both. So how do I sweeten it to get both?
Yeah, they just don't have any sweeteners is the issue. Like you'd have to throw in one of Strother or Watson or whoever. And at that point you're, taking away from your current rotation to add, to your rotation. Right. So yeah, look, I actually think an Atlanta thing makes more sense if I'm being honest. Like if you could do Porter for Bogdan, Nance, and something else, I think that kind of works better.
I like this idea for Denver to add, like you say, I like the idea of moving on from Porter to split it into two pieces more than I do. I think some of the other ones we've like just the Lavine, the Miller. Who are the other names? Not Miller, Ingram, Jordan Poole. What were the other names in the Clarkson?
It was Lavine, Poole, Clarkson, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Johnson, Jonas Valanciunas.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, look, like there are functional ways for them to go get like multiple of these guys. I was trying to figure out like could you maybe do like DeAndre Hunter to Detroit, Bogdan to Denver, Nance to Denver, and then like Detroit sends like a couple of things, including like maybe Fontecchio to Denver. In order to get DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, he would be a really nice piece for them.
Right? Like that kind of works. So the Nuggets would have to send out like one of their, Jalen Pickett types to Detroit, I think, to make something like that work. Right?
I'm trying to mess around with it on mine too.
Yeah, I'm like trying to figure it out. Shout out to Keith Smith building out this Spotrac deal here where there's just quite a bit of functionality in this. I guess that maybe you could send Zeke Naji to Detroit or something like that and try to make this work too. But I'm like trying to think that there's got to be a 3-team deal here somewhere where the Nuggets can get a few guys and Atlanta can get Michael Porter Jr. Given the reason that I think Atlanta would like Michael Porter Jr. Just everything that they're doing right now, team building wise, say that they're trying to put a bunch of big wings around Trae Young. Number one. I know you have Ricochet. I know you have Jalen Johnson. I think that Porter can just play with those guys along with Dyson Daniels. You need across the 2 through 4, you need 144 minutes every night. So if you have those 4 guys for that amount of time and they're all 26 and under, like Porter is and like Trae is, like that tracks for me. That makes a ton of sense and that'd be really fun. Denver would be splitting up its asset into multiple pieces, which is what Denver really needs right now. And they'd probably have to rope in a third team to get a third piece, just financially, if you wanted to do it with Bogdan. If not, you could just do it with DeAndre. But yeah, to me, like Atlanta with Michael Porter Jr. makes a lot of sense. And the other thing with Porter that we do have to talk about here just briefly is this is a guy that had a lot of injury questions coming into the NBA. Has missed the season due to a back injury. I do wonder what the medicals look like at the very least.
Yeah. So yes, one shout out Keith Smith again, Spotrac. What I love is I don't have to hit like submit on the trade. Like it just automatically updates and tells me whether things are successful or not. And I don't have to like go to a new page and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I mean, I was able to get it successful. Denver's not getting enough here, but by sending Porter to the Atlanta, Hunter to Detroit, Nance Jr. and Fontecchio to the Nuggets. And that worked. I even added in Malik Beasley just to see like if you added some money to Denver, if it worked, and that still worked. So
interesting.
There's something that could work there.
Yeah. But it just feels like there's synergy there between kind of all of those pieces, unless maybe Atlanta's just like, we don't want the injury risk that is Michael Porter Jr., but I don't know. Maybe Brooklyn as well with Porter, because the thing that we always talk about if you're going to move Cam Johnson, right, is having shooters around young players is really important.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, having guys who can space the court for young guys to grow into their star power is essential. And that might actually really help, I think, Brooklyn and help jumpstart things for them, even though they'll be paying Porter like significant money here for the next couple of years. I can see it, but to me, for that to work, they'd have to move Cam Johnson elsewhere and be like just getting a bunch of assets kind of across the board to do so.
Yep.
Okay. Denver, final point on this. I like that they're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like to me that they don't have enough to win a title right now. And again, for them with Jokic, the best player in the world, him or Giannis, whoever you want to say, I think that their standard should absolutely be, let's go win a title at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have Jokic, you have to, every year has to be that. So I like this as well. That that they're willing to look at something because it doesn't look like that's where they're at right now.
Yep. Okay. Before we get into the NBA draft question and answer section, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. The holidays are here, and there's nothing better than spending time with your family while being cozy and watching a movie on the couch. Another way to bring yourself some comfort is with therapy. Therapy is a way to make sure that comfort never goes away. Here's a reminder to be good to yourself and keep that cozy feeling of the holidays year round. I'm someone who's absolutely gone to therapy in the past. It really, really helps. It helps you understand yourself. It helps you kind of learn what boundaries to put on your brain, how to impact your mental health. There are so many different ways that therapy can be beneficial to all of us, really. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Get cozy year-round with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/GameTheory today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/GameTheory. Finally, this episode is brought to you by DUER. You guys know that I love my DUER jeans. The best feeling in the world is when your clothes fit good and look good, and you can comfortably wear them all day long. That is exactly how I feel about my clothing from DUER. I wear these things when Laura and I have people over at the house. I wear them whenever we have to go out and go to the movies. They are flexible, they're versatile, they're lightweight, they're stylish, they're incredibly valuable additions to your wardrobe. If you haven't ordered your DUERs yet, now is the time. They can be worn year-round. Their stretch performance denim and lifestyle apparel is built for doing. There's something for everyone for any occasion. Plus, DUER is committed to sustainability. They use recycled materials and plant-based fibers wherever possible for natural breathability, softness, and moisture absorption. You know I love my DUERs, and now's the time for you to get your own, because DUER is offering listeners of the Game Theory podcast 20% off. Go to shopduer.com/GameTheory. That's shopduer.com/GameTheory. shopduer.com/GameTheory. Okay. Bryce, are you ready to answer some NBA draft questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. From Steven, who is your guy in this draft right now? The guy that is most fun for you to watch, the guy that you kind of marvel at.
Interesting. Oh, Ben Seraph, I think, has been the one that I enjoy watching the most.
Man, I mean, look, I also really love Ben Seraph. I think people know that from when I did a breakdown video on Seraph in the preseason. I, have kind of talked about him quite a bit at this point. If I had to come up with another name right now, I think my answer would be JoJo Tugler at Houston.
Sure.
JoJo Tugler is insane. That dude, like, I don't know. Yeah, like, I don't know if he can offense, but he is the best defender in the country.
I feel like we had this conversation last year, but
we thought that the future was that he would be the best defender in the country. I thought like maybe he would be I thought he was 3 and done. He had the foot injury last year, and I thought that because of the foot injury, he'd probably be a little bit slower to develop this year.
What I meant is we were saying these same things about a different prospect in last year's class in Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn.
That's true. That's true.
Like, I'm pretty sure around Ryan Dunn, we said, can he offense? I don't know, but he's awesome defensively. And to me, JoJo is kind of the guy that's like, man, the defense is awesome.
The defense is insane. Like, there's a play against Alabama where I think I sent this to you, where he like blocks a shot at the rim, kind of
Yeah.
falls out of bounds a little bit. Alabama like swings it around to Mark Sears on the left wing. He's coming from like the right side of the court out of bounds, somehow X's out all the way back to the 3-point line on the opposite side of the court and blocks the shot.
Yeah.
Like we talk about ground coverage all the time. I don't think there's anybody else in college basketball that can cover that kind of ground. Tugler is 6'8". He plays for Houston. He has like a 7'6" wingspan, and you feel it out there.
Yep.
Like when you watch him, you know that this is like one of the longest players in college basketball. He cannot offense right now. Like you bring up Ryan Dunn. Like I think Dunn had more perimeter skill than what Tugler did does right now. So that is a real worry to me. But to me, like who's the guy that I have the most fun watching? I think Tugler would be my answer right now.
Yeah, no, he is a lot of fun. Like I said, Seraph creates so much separation. I really enjoy him. Guys that I'm really enjoying evaluating and kind of trying to figure out and watch their growth. Rasheer Fleming at St. Joseph's, who kind of have a interesting matchup tonight as he plays.
Bryce,
my bad.
The next question.
Okay, there we go.
Let's just jump in from AA. How do you feel on Rasheer Fleming and Drake Powell?
Yeah,
Bryce,
so,
I'll give you the floor on Rasheer Fleming.
Like, I'll just be straight up. I think I'm alone in this. I think Rasheer Fleming has a real chance to be a first-round pick. Like, I think he has that kind.
What? I Rasheer in the first round on the big board. I did last,
okay, my bad.
2 or 3 weeks ago.
So
what are we doing here?
Okay, can I give the truth? I try not to look at your stuff too much.
Fair point.
Because I don't want us to be like, okay, we're just going to say all the same things.
Yeah.
I do sometimes, but lots of times it's like just to see a few things. And I look at others people's to like, why did they have somebody so high? Why did they have somebody so low? I better go watch. But I don't want to do too much of your stuff. It's not like I don't support you or the Athletic, whatever. Obviously I do. So I didn't realize. So I think Rasheer Fleming is really good. And especially right now, because he's shooting the ball. What I was going to say was he plays my alma mater tonight, American University. So it's going to be a little bit tough. Like I hope he goes for 20 and 20, but hopefully the squad can keep it close. So I'm very high on Rasheer Fleming. I think he has the wingspan. He has the athleticism.
Yeah.
Like he's got a lot of tools. He's put some more of the other stuff together. There's still some things that have to come. His closeouts are quite poor right now. He's got to get better with it. I say it nicely. Yeah. He has to be better consistently on the boards, but I think he has a real chance in this draft to be a first-round pick.
He's more of a big right now than he is a wing, I think. And he has the athleticism, I think, to potentially shift to the wing eventually, which is interesting to me, given that he's like 6'8" or whatever with like a 7'3" wingspan. Like if you could unleash him defensively on like real wings because he improves his balance and can scramble around defensively and do different things like that, I'm like really interested.
Yeah.
At that point, like really, really interested. But right now, like there's a fine line in terms of like frame between Montrezl Harrell and OG Anunoby.
Sure.
Like if you look at their measurements, they're actually not that different. I think Anunoby might be like an inch taller, but like both 230 pounds, 7'3" wingspans, 6'7" to 6'8", like in that ballpark without shoes. Fleming is like kind of in the middle of those two to me athletically, where like has the explosive pop, like as a leaper, but like some of the balance stuff throws me off a little bit from time to time. And I don't know what to do with it yet. And I wonder, like, is that fixable? Like what's doable there? Kind of.
I would agree with that. Like there's definitely some things where at times it's like he's losing control of his body just a little bit. But there's also times where I think he's losing control and then he'll do something off the bounce offensively where I'm like, okay, there's the skill level that is more than just like a forward/big type of player. He can be this wingy archetype. So I'm really intrigued. The A10 obviously put out a first-round pick last year. That's a good conference. He's going to get tested throughout the whole thing. And so far he's really played well. So I anticipate nothing but him to continue to do the same. Really excited. Obviously a big fan.
Yeah, and I'll take Drake Powell here.
Yeah.
As of right now, I don't think Drake Powell's a one and done.
Yeah.
I'll just flat out say it. I don't think he can offense at the level necessary yet. Over his last 4 games after that really fun like pseudo breakout against Michigan State, where he had 18 points in that overtime game and went 7 of 9 and 4 of 6 from 3. He had 6 points against Alabama, a goose egg against Georgia Tech in 15 minutes, 7 points against LaSalle, and then last night he played 13 against Florida and went 1 of 5 and had 2 points. And then the games before that Michigan State game, 2 points against Auburn, 6 points against Dayton, had 2 points in 20 minutes against Kansas. I just don't think he's a one and done based off of what I've seen.
I would just say where I have him on my board, like I still have him on my board, but a freshman isn't going to come out based on where I have him on my board, or most freshmen wouldn't. So I'm with you. I'm leaning towards him not being a one and done at this point.
Yeah, I would not have him in my top 50 right now.
I do not have him in my top 50. So that's kind of,
Okay. Noah Casper, any thoughts on LeBaron Philon at Alabama? Bryce.
Yeah, I wish. Okay. I love the low center of gravity. Has some twitch and athleticism. At one point, he was rebounding the ball really well. Still not bad. Yeah, especially offensively, 1.5. I liked a lot of things about him. I wish he could shoot. Like that's my hang up right now with him offensively. It's a little slow on the catch and shoot. The percentages aren't good right now. The free throw percentage up to 74%. Three-point percentage hasn't been great. Defensively, I think he still has some refining to do, like physically. But tools. Yeah.
Aggressive and toolsy on defense.
Like it was, I watched the Purdue game and he was like guarding Braden Smith and the effort was awesome, but you could tell like he just wasn't quite as refined to navigate every ball screen and stuff like that. And then, like physically he's got to continue to fill out his frame, all of that. But I'm intrigued. I like him.
I also really like him. I am like a little bit immune right now to young point guards who really can't shoot.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the hardest translations to make early in your career in the NBA, especially ones that are like physically underdeveloped at this point. I think that Philon is almost certainly going to be one of the 30 best prospects in the 2025 NBA draft. I think there's pretty good chance he's one of the 20 best prospects in the 2025 NBA draft. I still kind of wonder if it would behoove him to return to Alabama actually for a year, even if that's true, because the goal isn't to just like get an NBA, rookie scale first round contract. The goal is to stick, right? And I do worry that he would be starting his clock in terms of his contract a little bit before he's ready to play in the NBA. He really can't shoot right now. Like that is the issue. He's shooting 24% from 3. Doesn't feel like he's super confident taking them from 3 right now. But I love the downhill pressure. I love the aggression. I love the athleticism. I think he can pass the ball at a high level. He's a real dude. I just worry that the skill level maybe hasn't caught up yet. And it might behoove him to return for another year in order to just kind of start his career later, especially like LeBaron Philon is $1 million player next year in college basketball. Like if he was to return, there is like no question. Like Alabama, somewhere else. I would hope he stays at Alabama because the scheme is perfect for him. Mark Sears will be gone at that point. Like he's $1 million player in college basketball next year. So like he doesn't have to worry about money at that point. I wonder if, some of these kids, like I feel the same way about Jeremiah Fears, right?
Yeah.
I just wonder if particularly the smaller lead guards, if it behooves them to stay in college and develop a little bit longer. And thus, like, if I was on the team side, like drafting them, I would wonder if I could get them on the second go around as opposed to like having to draft them in the top 20.
Yeah. And we've talked about this with small guard. Like, this is something you've talked about quite a bit. We should also, like, he is shooting, while the 3-point percentage, he is shooting 66% inside the 3-point line. His 2-point percentage is really good. I think his hesitation is legit. I think he has good touch in the lane, obviously, if you're shooting that inside the lane. But yeah, it's one of those things. You can get away with this a little bit more in college. You get to the league, you have to really be able to shoot it, even as an on-ball player, especially out of ball screens and in those situations. And it's like, okay, well, if it's going to take you a little while, are you better spending another year developing it in college? So,
yeah. Okay. From Josue Gonzalez. Is there a chance Trey Johnson could sneak into the top 5? Also, does he seem to be a better scorer than Ace Bailey? I am not the biggest Trey Johnson guy. I will say that. I would be interested to hear Bryce's take, though.
Which part did you answer? That he's a better scorer than Ace Bailey?
I didn't answer either of those. I just kind of said that I'm not necessarily the biggest Trey guy, to be honest. Look, I don't really see a world where I personally have Trey ahead of Cooper, Dylan, Yeager, Yakashonis, or Ace Bailey. But I mean, like, another team, like, could a different evaluator feel differently? Maybe. But what do you think of Trey? And then I'll kind of talk about what some of my concerns are.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think I would see him getting into that top 5 either right now. He is a bucket getter. His shot diet is, we talk about Ace's shot diet being difficult. I think Trey's shot diet is pretty difficult as well. I love his ability to make shots, but I worry about his ability to create easier looks. And to me, that's a bigger issue for, what are we going to call Trey Johnson? 6'5"?
Yeah, probably something like that without shoes.
Yeah. And he is skinny as well. But listen, he has the versatility. He has the soft touch. He can use the glass. Like, he makes NBA buckets. I've seen him like take up, the moment of the game, and isn't all of that. I'm a little nervous about like how athletic, how twitchy he is, those type of things. So I don't see it getting into the top 5. And like, I realize his percentages are better than Ace right now, but just in terms of like translating that to the NBA, some of those size things worry me more with Trey.
So Trey had that crazy blistering start against Ohio State, Houston Christian, Chicago State, and Mississippi Valley, right? Shot like 1,000,000,000% from 3, made at least 3 threes in all of those games, hit 5 threes in 2 of those games, right? Over his last 6 games, he's averaging 17.5 points on a 51.4 true shooting percentage, shooting 41.5% from the field, 31.6% from 3, 88.2% from the line, but doesn't really get to the line all that often because so much of it is pull-up stuff. That includes Syracuse, St. Joe's, NC State, UConn in that sample as well. So decent teams there. In terms of everything else, really, like, I think Trey is a player that, it's weird. We talked about like Colin Sexton earlier, right? And the fact that I don't think he's selfish. I just think he doesn't have great vision. I actually think Trey has pretty decent vision. He just doesn't use it all that often. Like, when you watch him, like, you will see him make some interesting creative passes. If he's going downhill toward the rim, like, he'll hit like a dump off from time to time. That's like pretty interesting. But he just doesn't utilize that enough. And like, going back to his time at Link, like going back to like the rest of his career to this point, like, he's never really consistently utilized the passing in a way that makes me believe it will be utilized as he moves up levels. and it gets harder, right? Like it doesn't get easier to make passing reads for your teammates. Yeah. Defensively, I actually think he knows where he has to be. Like he helps the helper. He consistently is in decent spots. He's just not disruptive at all defensively. Yeah. Like you don't feel him all that much. So Trey's a hard one for me. Trey is a very hard one for me because like I can pretty easily see a world where like Con Kneppel, because Con can really pass it, and Con is a much better defender than what Trey Johnson is. Like if he starts to shoot it well, which I think we all think Con will shoot it at some point, like I could pretty easily see him jumping Trey. Just like same position, same style player, like kind of just a more well-rounded game at that point. So I have Trey ahead of him right now because he's just been better this year than what Con has. But look, I have Trey like right around the 10 mark on my board right now. I'm a little bit lower, I think, than what the consensus is. But, you know, it's because if the shot isn't falling, like it's hard for him to make an impact. You know, he doesn't get to the line, not a super disruptive defender, and just like doesn't pass all that often, has a 1-to-1 turnover ratio. These guys are kind of like, it's very Malik Beasley-y. You know, he's a little bit more juice than what Beasley did off the bounce, but like, you know, you have to have so much juice that you can be a number 1 or a number 2 or a number 3 on an NBA team. And that requires you to be one of the 70 best players in the world at some point. It's fucking hard. It's a hard standard. And if you don't hit that standard, like the floor bottoms out in a big way. Yeah. So he's tricky to me. He has to be like a Cam Johnson or Cam Thomas level scorer. And I think Cam is just a better scorer than he is, if I'm being honest. Like I think Cam separated better. I think Cam's like cadence and footwork was better. I just think I trust Cam's ability to separate more than Trey.
Yeah, I have Trey at 10 as well on my board right now. So that's, again, like he can really score it. He's made some big shots. It's really intriguing. But I think to get into the top 5 would, I don't know, I'd have to see some of the defensive stuff, or he all of a sudden starts putting the passing with the scoring to really feel like he's like a number 1 option type of player, two-way player, something like that.
Yeah. Last question here. From Dave McNola over on Blue Sky. Blue Sky. Shout out Blue Sky. For San Antonio's potential Chicago pick, supposing it conveys, who do you like for them in that 10 to 14 zone? So I picked this question in large part because I am interested in talking with you about that section of the draft.
Okay.
So right now in that 10 to 14 section, I have Trey Johnson, I have Con Kneppel, I have Jace Richardson, I have Derek Queen. It bottoms out in a big way for me after that. I have like 15, 16 guys that I have first round grades on right now. Not many beyond that. How are you feeling about that area of the draft, the 10 to 14, maybe even just like the late lottery portion?
Awful. Like, so I had this, I was talking to a scout today, and it's like, I feel like everybody's, raving about this draft. And I'm like,
it's driving me crazy.
It's driving me nuts.
It's driving me insane. And this is the top 5 is really good.
Yes.
Because Cooper is there. Dylan's there. I really like Jaeger probably more than most people do. And I really like Kasparis, and Ace is a fascinating wild card to me that, could be a star, could be Michael Porter Jr., whatever it is. Also, Cooper is not like Victor as a prospect. Like he's good, but he's not that good. And after that, like it gets, I don't want to say dire, but like it gets rough in a hurry.
So that's exactly what I told somebody today. And here's what I've realized is that people only judge drafts off the very top, like off the, last year was an awful draft because the guy wasn't at the top. And, that's fair. but it was like, okay, well, maybe there's some guys down the line later in the first round that could still be interesting. And then, the draft you just mentioned was, so I'm struggling to fill out a first round. We've talked about this, like if you get to my number 10 player last year, which was Devin Carter, and number 10 this year, which is Trey Johnson, I loved Devin Carter. So in that sense, I don't know that I think this year's draft is that much better whenever you get to number 10 this year versus number 10 last year, so I hope it's a good opportunity to, I think, like maybe temper people's expectations of like, it's not like it's a loaded class of 30 first round talents. And if you're picking at the end of the lottery, I'm not saying there won't be a guy there, right? Because Jared McCain went 16 to the Sixers. So it's like, like you can obviously find guys. Okay, so the name, what do we think San Antonio needs? Like I instantly look at their cap sheet.
Well, here, real quick here before we move on there. Like some of the names that I see people put there that I'm just like lower on, right?
Okay.
I've seen Will Riley's name put there. Will Riley, is a guy that
I'm way
again, people got real excited about the shooting early on. And I said, like, look, I've seen him get smoldering hot. And I've also seen him like miss 10 in a row, like pretty easily. Do you know what he's made from 3 over the course of his last 5 games, Bryce?
Will Riley is not in my lottery. I can say that.
Assure you of that. Yeah.
Pretty strongly.
Will Riley's made 4 for 26 of his last of his threes in the last 5 games.
And 0 of 12 in his last 3.
Yeah. He is like decidedly a streaky shooter, like I said, coming into the year. And he also doesn't defend either. So what do you do with that? And to be honest with you, Bryce, like I still have him at the edge of the first round, even because I can't find 30 guys. So like,
okay, let me throw some names.
Name. Noah Essengay is a name. I mean, he hasn't been great recently in Germany, but it's the ballpark where I have him right now because I'm interested for sure.
What about Common? Because I've even cooled way on Common compared to where I had him at one point.
Don't have him there.
You still don't have him here?
In that group.
What about Boogie?
Look, it's just small to have. It's hard to have a small player in that kind of zone, but I have Boogie as a first rounder for sure. I appreciate that he can at least like separate and create his own shot. And I love that dude seems really tough, like plays bigger than his size. I don't think he's 6'2", if I'm being honest. Like we'll see what he comes in at measurement wise. But like the Michigan game, like he didn't even shoot super well in the Michigan game, but I thought he was really impressive in the Michigan game.
I like Boogie. Colin Murray Boyles.
In that range for me, but like I don't know what the position is, if I'm being honest.
Caravan.
Good player though. I have Caravan in that range, and Caravan hasn't been great.
And then Hugo finally got some time 2 games ago.
Played well.
Played very well.
I have Hugo in this range too.
I do. I liked that was a good game for me to watch in terms of understanding Hugo and getting excited about Hugo again. He played well in that game. Asa Newell.
Couple names. Yeah, so I have Asa Newell a little bit ahead of these guys.
Yeah.
And I have Liam McNeely in the top 10.
I'm way too high on Liam McNeely, so like obviously.
The other name that I'll throw out there that I kind of dig and think is interesting is Noah Penda with Le Mans over in France.
Where do you have him? He keeps moving up my board. I have him at 23. I like Noah Penda. Yeah. I think he's good.
Big body dude who knows how to play basketball. Like just really sharp, like 6'7" and 220 pounds, 225, 230 pounds, whatever he is. Physical, strong. Like I'll in this draft, like if he goes in the lottery, it wouldn't surprise me at this point. But starts for Le Mans and has played well. So I say that to say it's really hard to find names right now outside of that top like 20, especially. In terms of San Antonio, And this will be where, maybe we call it, because you have to get out of here in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
San Antonio, I kind of dig Jace Richardson if they're just going to go hey, let's just get the guys who know how to play around Victor and let that rock. That still seems super early to me for Jace Richardson.
Yeah.
If they could get Con Kneppel, that'd be really fun. I think just another shooter who knows how to play. I think that would work well. How do you feel about the Derek Queen Victor combo?
Go crazy. Derek Queen, Jeremy Sohan, Victor Wembanyama. Let's figure it out. Let's see.
Seems like a terrible idea, but I would like to see it. One of those things that I know in my brain, it's a real fucking terrible idea, but I would love to see it on the court.
I mean, Seraph is this range, right?
Yeah, for sure. Seraph would make sense to me. Liam would make sense to me. Yeah, it's.
So I assume most the go-to with Vic is always shooting, right? And then you have Sohan who doesn't really shoot it. You have Castle now on the roster who's going to be a player for him, doesn't shoot it great. So who do you think is the best shooter? Let's take Liam and Knippel off the board because those are the
Trey Johnson's in this range for me too. So probably Trey. Yeah. But there are 3 shooters in this range for them. By the way, they have their own pick in this range too, potentially.
Yeah, true.
So that's a whole other thing. Look, I don't think that, frankly, I know Chicago right now is outside of the top 10 or right on that borderline. I don't think that pick's going to convey, but I think San Antonio is probably going to end up right in this 8 to 14 range anyway with their own pick. So San Antonio should be watching these guys anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. Okay. Bryce. I don't really have anything for recommendation corner here. This morning I watched the Kieran Culkin, Coleman Domingo actors on actors interview where they interview each other, and Kieran Culkin's just delightful. It's literally a buddy cop thing where Kieran Culkin is explaining how he literally never wakes up at the same time every day, and Coleman Domingo wakes up at 4:30 in the morning every day and is the most regimented human being, and Kieran Culkin's yeah, I don't do any of that shit. It's incredible. Their energies match really well. And I found the whole thing just really, really interesting because I think they're both incredible actors. But I'm in the middle of reading this weird book right now that, maybe on Sunday I'll let people know if it was good or not. And then I haven't watched any movies. I might watch some movies eventually today now that we don't have basketball.
I have nothing. I watched the Yellowstone season finale, and that's been it. Yeah, because I had already watched Red One before the last recording.
Yeah, you're ready for the Rip and Kelly Riley spinoff, I'm sure.
I saw that had been reported. So yeah, we'll see. Listen, you know how many shows we've started and got 3 episodes in and didn't finish, and
I'm sure when you have kids, it's hard.
Yeah, you get a few free hours, you lock into it, you think you're gonna be able to finish it, and then you end up never getting a few free hours again. So, and by the time you do, you forgot everything, and so you move on to something else.
All right, Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter and over on Blue Sky. I wanted to try it because the way you did it was really cool. There we go. You do it way better. My accents only apply to names that we are talking about on the podcast. Shout out Igor Demon and the Motor City Hoops Substack. Subscribe over there. I talk about your favorite team when they play the Pistons. If you want to read some of those, the Pistons Bulls podcast. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. You'll be able to read Trade Deadline Big Board. Did a breakdown on Giannis in the NBA Cup last night. Did a post-game theory the night before with Cade, Grady Dick, Isaiah Hartenstein. You'll be able to see all of this over on the YouTube channel. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. Go subscribe to all of the many social media platforms that our fearless leader and producer, GMAC, Andrew Claudio, curates: X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok as well. Go do all of that. Until next time, we'll talk soon.